DevilNeverCry.
Transformers Devastation, another hidden gem from Platinum Games, a game that oozes style, not only in its gameplay, but in its aesthetics and of course its soundtrack. Despite all this praise, however, the game is not very well known, and it likely is not going to be, considering that it was recently delisted from a lot of platforms. But to us, that simply doesn't matter, for in today's video, we're going to be playing Transformers Devastation from start to finish and getting our money back. Typically at this point, I'd like to discuss exactly how this run is going to work. But first, a word from our sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. Have you ever dreamed of holding a AAA game right in the palm of your hands? Something you can perhaps dive into and play anytime? Well, you can with Raid Shadow Legends. With millions of champion combinations, countless tactics to master, hundreds of artifacts to play with, you can build your team, develop your champions, and raid your way. On both mobile and PC. Raid Shadow Legends has just celebrated their 3rd anniversary. A game that started off strong, they never took their foot off the pedal and never slowed down. Countless heroes and bosses, the new Shadowkin faction, the sprawling Doom Tower, and the Hydra clan boss. Just some of the things I had the pleasure of experiencing in my time with Raid Shadow Legends. And right now, Raid's running an amazing trick-or-treat Halloween promotion, where new players can win a bunch of real-life and in-game prizes, including Amazon gift cards and some of the best epic and legendary Halloween champions in Raid. Best of all, it's free and super easy to get involved. Just follow the links in the description, spin the wheel and get your prize. But remember, this event runs until November 5th, so don't delay. But wait, there's more. New players, use my link or scan the QR code right here and get a free starter pack worth almost $30, including the Champion Tyrell and this cool in-game loot. You'll find these rewards here in your inbox for the next 30 days only. Thank you to Raid Shadow Legends, back to the video. As I was saying, here's exactly how this run is going to work. Steam as a platform has a no questions asked refund policy, provided that your refund request matches 2 specific requirements. The first, of course, is that the refund request comes within 14 days of purchasing said product, which doesn't apply to us. The second requirement, of course, is that you must have less than 2 hours total playtime on the game you're trying to get a refund for. And therein lies our challenge. If we want to get our money back, we'll need to beat Transformers Devastation in under 2 hours. If we first take a look at the How Long to Beat website, which averages out people's playtimes, Transformers Devastation is listed as a game that can be beaten in 5 hours. If we take a look at the SpeedRun leaderboard, however, the playtime for that is far, far lower. So I'm hoping that our playtime will lie somewhere in between, preferably under the 2-hour mark. But I think at this point I can delay no further. It's time for me to stop talking and to face the devastation. So here we are at the start of our run, Transformers Devastation. If you've never played this game before, you're certainly in for a treat. This game dropped all the way back in 2015, and you wouldn't really know thanks to its beautiful cel-shaded style that, of course, still holds up. And of course, that's not even mentioning the slick gameplay. Developed by Platinum Games, of course, who are known for their wonderful gameplay, it's no surprise that this is another feather in their cap. But enough waxing poetic about juggernauts in the hack and slash genre, let's get into the nitty-gritty of how exactly we're going to attack this run. I knew in the back of my mind that this wasn't a particularly long game. However, with that said, I knew that I spent countless hours playing this game, and so I needed to be careful in the way I approached things, otherwise I'd be wasting time unnecessarily. Simply put, this meant that I would be going only for the main objectives, immediately beelining for the waypoint on the map, and kind of just going with it. There's lots of forced encounters in this game, ones that I don't really know where they are, I don't know which can be avoided. All I would attempt to do was run straight to that objective, and if it let me go through an area without fighting, fantastic. If I got stuck into an encounter, my aim was to take enemies out as quickly as possible. Sticking to the main objective, of course, that also meant that I would be skipping any non-mandatory encounters, and I would be avoiding any and all side missions and extracurricular activities like environmental puzzles. But this is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, I save time by skipping all of these things, but at the same time, it means that my character will be weaker for it. And that's something that I'll need to touch upon. Though this is a hack and slash game, this has a lot of RPG elements to it, particularly a loot system with rarity that alters and affects just how much damage you'll be doing. I believe that the higher the difficulty you play on, and of course the better the ranks you get in combat, the more likely you are to get rarer loot, with of course rarer loot being capable of being upgraded more, and overall just having more of a capacity to put damage out there. By skipping all the extracurricular activities and of course playing on a lower difficulty, it meant that I wouldn't be getting that rarer loot and my damage output would be hindered, which in turn would hinder how fast I could basically defeat enemies and progress on to my next objective. But I decided to believe in the heart of the cards, so to speak, and pressed on with the false bravado that I would definitely get this run done in under 2 hours. I just had to play the game like I knew what I was doing. Swinging back to the gameplay for a second, let's discuss the basics. You're able to play as whatever character you want, with each character having their own ultimate move and special move. Our character here respectively has a missile barrage and a dash that we can employ. At any given moment, your character will have access to 2 firearms and 2 melee weapons. For the majority of this run, simply because we like their moveset, we'll be running with the twin sabers and 1 single broadsword. Whenever we're in between fights, we'll be using our vehicle mode to traverse the environment, as it is simply the quickest way to get around. We'll also be using our vehicle mode in combat, as they are literally part of combos. You can literally launch an enemy and then do a burnout in its face before slamming him to the ground. I don't know what sort of magic Platinum were able to sprinkle into this game's combat, but the vehicle attacks are some of the most cathartic moves you can pull off in a hack and slash game. The neon flash as you transform, the high-pitched noise that harmonizes with the way that you slam into an enemy, the hit stun that occurs as time slows down and you see your enemy blown away with the recoil, it all coalesces into a moment that's hard to replicate elsewhere. And let's not forget the metal-inspired soundtrack that absolutely shreds in the background as you fight wave after wave of enemy in Transformers Devastation. Eventually, after a lot of meandering and getting reacquainted with the controls, we take on Megatron and Devastator back to back before we get to the end of Chapter 1. There are 7 chapters in total, and at the time of playing, I was unsure how long each chapter was. I just hoped they'd be shorter than the first chapter, as I'd be cutting it close if they weren't. Our first goal for the second chapter is to get into the Proud Star, but to do so, we'll have to go and hunt down a sentry bot and defeat it so that we can obtain a key. After grabbing the key, we head into the Proud Star, where we face off against a set of Insecticons, robots that are able to transform into giant insects and vice versa. Soundwave initially tries to halt our progress as a mini-boss, but we scrap him entirely, and then we face off against a horde of Insecticons in an on-rail shooting section. I find it funny that there are so many encounters in this game, but they all typically tend to last only 30 seconds. It certainly is confidence-inspiring getting through all of these encounters at a blistering pace. After completing the on-rail shooting section, it's time for more encounter in this neon orange glow before getting to the plasma core. Kickback throws his best efforts at us in an attempt to stop us, but to no avail as he gets an ultimate smackdown, and then we have to destroy the plasma core shielding before it overheats and blows up. We're able to do so in record time, of course, and the run ends, with Chapter 2 being another 17-minute chapter. In between Chapter 2 and Chapter 3 is when I start to synthesize our weapons and make them much stronger. I should probably mention that you do have the ability to buy moves for your character, but seeing as we have everything we need in our current toolset, I decide not to do so and proceed on to Chapter 3. This chapter opens up with us cruising through the underground of the city before finally resurfacing. Turns out that destroying the plasma core didn't stop the Ferrotaxis from attempting to terraform the planet. Drifting through the city streets, we finally make it to our destination, the bridge which will take us to the island. It's here that we're introduced to a new enemy type, the ground soldier. These basic grunts have giant hammers, lots of health, and can hit rather hard, but provided you take advantage of the dodge's witch time effect, if you get it perfect, you'll be able to take them out in no time at all. And at this point, we move on to a top-down section. This definitely took me by surprise the first time it popped up, but was a welcome change from the usual gameplay. We have to make our way to one of the objective points to pick up a red block of energon, and then slowly carry it all the way back, avoiding enemies that are trying to hit you. Eventually though, as you get close to your objective, you'll be thrown into another forced encounter, where you'll be able to take advantage of the energon you are carrying, as hitting it or shooting at it will cause it to explode and do damage to surrounding enemies. As we finish breaking through the Decepticons' defenses, it's time to cross that giant bridge, but not before Blitzwing decides to attack us. Say what you will about Transformers, but the edgy names of the Decepticons definitely have some charm to them. After we give Blitzwing a literal run for his money whilst crossing the bridge, it's time to tackle him whilst on solid ground. By using the Power Booster consumable item, which literally doubles the output of damage your character does, we're able to take down Blitzwing in his second form in just 11 seconds. What's even more intriguing is that you're not penalized in any way in regards to your rankings when using items. It's almost like they want you to use them. With Blitzwing down, it's time to move on to Chapter 4, where we have to fight our way across the bridge we spent the last one getting across. Thankfully, we can literally run by, or in this case, drive by 90% of the enemies on the bridge, only having to fight the 10% that are left near the exit. After doing so, we'll have to race Motormaster to a specific location on the map. Or alternatively, you can defeat Motormaster whilst he's attempting to race to the objective. I mean, you don't have to race if there's no opponent, right? All in all, this is the safer option to go with, as if he beats you to the objective, it technically counts as a fail state and you'll have to restart from a checkpoint. As rain and wind sweep across the cityscape, it's time to move on to our next objective, finding the plasma core. It's not going to be marked on our map here, we simply have to go by a radar which will tell us if we're getting closer or further to our designated objective. Once we find our objective, the plasma core stuck in the ground, it turns into a horde mode, where we'll have to protect Wheeljack from wave after wave of enemy as he works on the plasma core. After protecting Wheeljack successfully by defeating all of the waves of enemies, it's time to take on the boss of this chapter, Menasor, another giant robot with an electrifying sword. We eventually are able to take this boss down, taking no damage in this encounter, and that leads us on to the end of the chapter. Chapter 5 opens up with a one-on-one duel against Starscream, in what can only be described as an endless void. How you can tell where is up and where is down here makes little sense, but it is cool regardless. We eventually put Starscream in his place and end up escaping the void before having to face off against Blitzwing yet again, who wants revenge for being humiliated in those brief 11 seconds. After taking care of Blitzwing, Soundwave decides to creep out of the woodwork, or in this case metalwork, deciding he too wants a run back. Pity for him though, it ends the same way the first round went. After those encounters, we find ourselves at the mercy of another plasma core going wild, this time with its attempts to pull us in. After speeding away from the situation and doing some more neon platforming, we come into another section where we have to defend Wheeljack yet again as he attempts to repair a lift which will get us out of this sticky situation. This plays out similarly to the last time we had to protect Wheeljack, except this time there will be large claws shaking up the platform in an attempt to throw us off entirely. We prioritize the claws and take them out immediately, as if we didn't, it would be another fail state as they literally flip over the platform. We eventually get the lift working, are assailed as we are on the lift and trying to escape, have to face off against another sentry bot, and just when we think the coast is clear, Soundwave comes back for the third run back. Can anybody guess how this goes for him? Yeah, he definitely wasn't third time lucky, as that ends Chapter 5. As we push on to Chapter 6, this hands down has to be one of my favorite chapters in this game. This chapter is nothing but pure combat, where we face off against pretty much all of the enemies we've encountered so far. No environmental puzzles to tackle, no landscapes we have to traverse from one end to the other to complete an objective. It's simply one encounter after another. We do eventually face off against mini-bosses like Skywarp and Thundercracker, who go down relatively easy, and as we push through more encounters, we get to the end, where it culminates in a fight against Devastator, Menasor, and then both of them at the same time. All the while with Megatron watching and laughing from his Iron Throne, as we're literally out here fighting for our lives. They end up putting up a good fight, but thanks to our power booster doubling our damage output and our ultimate move being multi-hitting, it doesn't take too long before both of them are felled, and we move on to Chapter 7, the final chapter. The first half of this chapter is a fight against Megatron on Earth. As the sun sets with a practiced grace, and the tide gently laps against the coast, we face off against Megatron in what can only be described as the most metal moment of it all. Megatron's theme has to be one of my favorite tracks in this game, and it's a pleasure to hear it sound out at the back as we lay an atomic smackdown on Megatron for all the trouble he's caused us these past few chapters. Just when you thought this chapter couldn't get any better, as the first half ends and the second begins, we find ourselves controlling Optimus, fighting Megatron in outer space for the fate of the world. It certainly is a cinematic moment, as we see Megatron and Optimus clash not only physically, but ideologically in a culmination of their rivalry, which sees Optimus standing the victor. And as we skip through the remaining cutscenes, and we come to the mission results screen, we come to the end of our run, having beaten Transformers Devastation in 1 hour, 23 minutes and 32 seconds. So, there you have it. Another game we can scratch off our list of having been beaten in under 2 hours. Before we go any further, I want to say a big thank you to those of you who stuck around to the very end of this run, and thank you for your support. To those of you still watching, still listening, let me know in the comments below what you want to see me tackle next. And who knows, your choice might be the one we tackle next. Getting back on track though, we've nailed our challenge and technically are entitled to a refund. However, those of you who are rather attentive will know that I let something slip at the very beginning of this video. This game has been delisted, there's no way for me to obtain a refund, and that's not even mentioning the fact that I forgot to put my contacts in and was playing on console the entire time. But as always, if you enjoyed today's video, do be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. Not only does it help the channel out with the algorithm, it means you won't miss out on the next video. With all that said and done, it has been me, DevilNeverCry. I'd like to thank all of you for watching, and as always, I'll see you all next video.